So no fighter in MMA would fight with this stance. But plenty of fighters fight like this.
Very smart, and keeping the fight in the center of the ring.
No fighter would fight in this stance. Some fighters fight like this.
Freddie Roach told us he thinks Mayweather's going to come out quick.
No fighter would fight on this stance or on this stance. But pretty much all Muay Thai fighters fight on this stance.
Reads it, doesn't he?
Now notice that these low karate stances are simply exaggerated version of actual stances that you see in an actual fight in MMA or the variations of kickboxing. So why do we want to exaggerate the stances? The experiment that we did with Zenkutsu-dachi, there is the sweeps in 3 directions, linearly, laterally, and now we'll try diagonal sweeps. Even with the correct stance, where the knee exceeds the heel, I'm still able to take him down. And from that position, test to both lean and pull. From this experiment, even for the upper body, Zenkutsu-dachi has a natural weakness against diagonal forces. With my chest out, I won't be able to resist his weight. And why you never see Muay Thai fighters fighting with their chest sticking out. They keep their shoulders forward. The center of mass is still in the most ideal stable position, while the lower back muscles provide support to the waist and up. And you'd never see a Muay Thai fighter standing like this. They will stand this way just by dropping down, and that's a Nekoashi-dachi. Your front leg is always ready for a maigeri, front kick. That Muay Thai fighters do this all the time with the teep. Has anyone ever explained to you why we train on low stances in karate and how that relates to sparring or actual fighting or even MMA? If not, you'll find the answer in this video. Please like and subscribe. But before that, have you watched one of the recent videos by Jesse and Camp?
What's up, guys?
There we have him, the man, the myth, the legend.
This is Stephen Wonderboy Thompson.
If not, you have to. That video inspired me so much and came just in time for this video I'm doing now. It's inspiring to see how much respect they have for each other. It's also inspiring that despite being one of the most successful karateka in MMA, apart from Lyoto Machida, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson was fanboying out towards Jesse and Camp, the karate nerd.
Guys, I'm telling you, I can't tell you how I'm fanning out right now. I'm fanboying it right now. Fanboying this guy.
This shows that he doesn't feel the need to behave as if he's higher than the other person. This not only demonstrates humility, but also confidence with himself. Jesse and Camp, of course, also shows the same respect.
For sure.
I've learned from a lot of great people. All I'm doing is sharing what I've learned. And
Well,
now
it's
I'm here
exciting.
to learn from you. And then I will share what I learned from you with somebody else.
If you so happen to be listening, Jesse-sensei, Jesse-san, the karate nerd, there's no way you'd remember me, but way back in 2011, we had a friendly email conversation. That was when you were still mostly focusing on your blog and WKF Championship kata recordings. I left a comment in one of your blog posts and you responded with an email. I eventually asked for permission to post your article in one blog I was working on back then, for which you allowed and were very supportive. 2 years later, I bumped that email asking for advice regarding old photos of karate masters, for which I was very grateful that you responded. This is where I feel bad and want to apologize. Only now did I realize that I did not reply with a thank you. So apologies and thank you. I'm a bit 9 years late, but thank you. The second thing that inspired me is that although Wonderboy's Ryuha, or style of karate, Tenshin Ryu Kenpo Karate, is not one of those styles that originated from Japan or Okinawa, you can see that in this video with Jesse and Camp, Wonderboy is truly trying to go back to the roots of karate. And it's not just him, it's his sensei too, who is his father.
Wooden things over there.
Oh, Those are our makueras. This is where the magic happens right here.
I love this. This feels like I'm back in Okinawa. Do you use any other kind of traditional methods?
I think kata is a great way to train not only just your body, but your mind as well. It's something that you can never get perfect, right? Obviously helps build technique, but body awareness, because everything from your toes up to your body's got to be in the right spot at the right moment. There's a lot of people out there that don't like kata and think it's useless, and I think that's complete opposite. You know, a lot of people see this technique. When are you going to do that in karate? Well, you don't know. It's the bunkai. You don't know the real application.
But then when you're in that cage and you use it as a frame, suddenly it became useful.
Yes, sir. Something very similar to a high block, but I use it to defend takedowns as well.
A lot of people use it from the clinch. Oh, like this, right?
Yep. 100%. Yeah. It was my goal and my dad's goal to let everybody know that, hey, karate can be used in MMA. And it's always going back to my karate roots. I feel like I should be the traditional, I wouldn't say savior of karate, but I want to bring karate back. I want to bring it to the limelight.
Make karate cool again.
Yes, make karate cool again.
But there are many people who do traditional training, kung fu, wing, whatever it is, right? And they can't make it work. So how do you bridge that gap between the old and the new?
It's experimenting. You know, using my karate and experimenting in live situations, or obviously in sparring.
The last thing that inspired me that I'll be mentioning here is when Wonderboy says this.
So at what point does it stop being karate? Because as you experiment, you move further and further away from the tradition. So breaking tradition.
Yes. Yeah, I try not to break tradition anyway. The reason for that is because, again, I'm known as a karate fighter, and I want to continue that legacy and let everybody know out there that, hey, karate works. Or if they're contemplating whether or not they should go MMA if they're a karate guy, will karate work? I'm here to say it is. So I think it's more of an emotional thing as well for me, because I want to stick to the roots. So
now I know some of you who are watching will be saying, that is not good. That is limiting yourself. But I can explain. What people like Wonderboy and Machida are doing is sharing to the martial arts and MMA community functional techniques uniquely from karate that the world otherwise wouldn't have known about. Before Machida, front kicks or maigiri weren't really a thing in MMA.
It gets sedentary.
Now everyone's doing it. Wonderboy brought back the sidekick, or yokogeri, or sokodogeri.
Expect someone to have the ability.
Masvidal has the best boxing in the UFC. He was in the first.
Oh, there's that front leg.
And the hook kicks, or uramawashigeri.
Hook kick.
While Machida brought back the non-clinched sweeps, leg sweeps, or ashibarai.
Joe, as you pointed out, a lot of...
The very long-range distance management wasn't really a thing in MMA until Machida and Wonderboy.
Machida. And that's one of the fights. It was early in the first round for that first kick to be thrown.
So he's tall and bigger.
There's that front leg side kick.
This was one of the things that all their opponents found very puzzling and difficult to overcome. Now everyone's learning to fight at long range. Long range comes along with what they call the blitz, with straight punches.
Just change it up a little bit. Again, it's coming. Oh!
But could be pretty evenly matched in terms of wins by first round knockout.
Us karateka don't call it a blitz because to us, every attacking techniques is supposed to be like a blitz.
Out of the way. Soak it in. Inside. Down by Lyoto. Great foot sweeps. Now the one thing Thiago Silva needs is check to kick, something he didn't.
Let him embarrass me on the Ultimate Fighter again. Pushing
forward. He got caught.
And it is all over.
This too was a puzzle to their opponents, but now everyone's learning to overcome and see it coming. Basically, Wonderboy's philosophy is to share what he has that others don't. There is a Malay saying that goes, "Jangan kedekut ilmu," which means do not be greedy with knowledge. Instead of keeping all his secrets to himself for him and only him to know and use, Wonderboy's philosophy is to share them, generosity. He has a YouTube channel that anyone can go and watch. And the same goes to Jesse Income. So, thank you. If you've been following my KihonMechanics series, where I explain the body mechanics behind Kihon or karate fundamentals relating to strikes, stances, and hip rotation, you probably might have related that more to kata as opposed to kumite, sparring, or fighting. But the reality is, my plan all this while was to eventually connect all these and move towards kumite. And this is the first video directly touching this. I'm going to give you 6 reasons for training on low stances. The 5th reason being the focus on this video, and the 6th reason will be elaborated in the next video. The reasons are tradition, leg strength exercise, multitasking, center of mass control, exaggerating the attributes, and habit control for low telegraphy. The first reason is not a practical reason, and that is tradition. Some may think this is not good, but consider this. Preserving a tradition or preserving a culture is never a bad thing unless it is harmful or infringes upon the rights of individuals or group of people. Slavery, for example, is a horrible tradition. Apart from that, it's not a bad thing. Preserving a kata is like preserving a dying language. Is there a practical reason for preserving a dying language? Not really. In fact, hypothetically, the world would function more efficiently if everyone just spoke one language and no translations are ever needed. Yet, preserving a language is still not a bad thing. But what can you gain from preserving languages? We could relearn lost cultures. We discovered much more about ancient Egyptian history after decoding the hieroglyphs. And learning cultures is inseparable from learning history. Is there a practical reason for learning history? Although learning history could help a civilization reflect on the past to improve its future, the main purpose of learning history is actually for knowledge or discovery. And it's this discovery and experimentation on low stances and the knowledge we gain from that is what I will explore with you in reason number 5, but with practical application. Reason number 2, leg strength exercises. I don't think I need to elaborate on this any further. Reason number 3, multitasking. When you first learn the basic karate punch, there's a lot to take in. It's very intricate and there's a lot to consider. You must make sure you got the right target. You land on your first 2 knuckles, relax the shoulders, point the elbow down to lock the shoulders, and this would minimize the absorption of impact by the arm to maximize absorption of impact by the target. Make sure that you rotate on your wrist and not your elbows. And this is all explained in another KihonMechanics video. And once you get the hang of it, and you're able to do it with speed, most likely your instructor would ask you to do the same thing, but on a low stance, on a Shiko-dachi, or if Shotokan, Kiba-dachi. And without realizing, most likely you'll find yourself standing taller and taller. And the reason for this is because you're not yet able to multitask between upper body and lower body. So this progression of training, of isolating the techniques to train them individually, say punches on its own, Shiko-dachi on its own, Zenkutsu-dachi on its own, eventually with hip rotation, to eventually synchronizing the techniques, trains you to multitask between upper body and lower body with full speed and power. And as we know, multitasking between the upper and lower body is very crucial in a fight or sparring. Ask any fighter from any martial arts background and they will tell you the same thing. Ask a boxer with a hamstring injury And they would tell you that throwing an effective punch is almost impossible if you can't coordinate your legs well. Reason number 4, center of mass control. I've done a number of KihonMechanics videos touching on the center of mass, so do refer to that. Finally, reason number 5, exaggerating the attributes. So no fighter in MMA would fight with this stance, but plenty of fighters fight it like this.
Very smart in keeping the fight in the center of the ring.
No fighter would fight in this stance, but some fighters fight like this.
Freddie Roach told us he thinks Mayweather's going to come out quick.
No fighter would fight on this stance or on this stance, but pretty much all Muay Thai fighters fight on this stance.
Reads it, doesn't he?
Now notice that these low karate stances are simply exaggerated version of actual stances that you see in an actual fight in MMA or the variations of kickboxing. So why do we want to exaggerate the stances? And the answer to that is to exaggerate its attributes, so we could more easily experiment on them to discover the natural strengths and weaknesses of each stances. I will be showing you some experiments on a few stances, and all these are pretty much exactly how my sensei teaches us. So if you get your partner to stand on the Zenkutsu-dachi with his heel exceeding the knee, or the wrong way to do it, and you attempt to sweep him linearly, most likely he will fall down. But if his heel does not exceed the knee, it will be much more difficult for you to take him down with a linear sweep. And the same effect is seen with a lateral sweep. And what we learn from this is a front stance where the knee exceeds the heel is much more effective or much more stable than if the heel exceeds the knee. Now we'll try diagonal sweeps. And you can see that even with the correct stance where the knee exceeds the heel, I'm still able to take him down. So from this experiment, we learned that the natural weakness of the correct and strongest front stance is a diagonal sweep. So if you're facing a fighter who stands with a stance where his weight is more towards the front, if his heel exceeds the knee, you know that you could make him fall by any kind of sweep. But if his knee exceeds the heel, you know that you'd have to use the diagonal sweep to take him down. Another obvious weakness of when the heel exceeds the knee is that the knee is susceptible to bend the other way if the opponent were to do a Geidan Shoko-dachi or a low-level knife feet kick directly to the knee. Now don't actually try that on your partner. Instead, just rest your weight on his knee slowly. And most likely it will be weak. Now try that again with the knee exceeding the heel. Like this, most likely you would hurt your own foot if you attempt to do a side kick to his knee. Now we compare a narrow front stance with a shoulder width front stance. Now you could use the lateral sweep or push onto the shoulders from the sides, and the results will be the same. A shoulder width front stance is more stable against lateral forces compared to narrow front stances. Now this does not mean that you have to fight on a shoulder width if you're fighting on a front stance. No, it just means that you must be aware of the strengths and weaknesses that you so choose. For example, if I were to fight on a shoulder width front stance, it shows that I'm less concerned about attacks to my center than I am with attacks to my sides. If I choose to fight in a narrow stance, it shows that I'm more concerned about attacks to my center than I am from the sides. So by closing my center, I'm giving my opponent no angle of attack. And if he so chooses to attack from the sides, I go into his center, which is my advantage. Now, if he's trying hard to look for an opening to my center, most likely he'll be circling around me, and all I need to do is pivot to keep my center closed. And once he's too focused on finding an opening, the moment he forgets about his own defense, that's when I go in and catch him by surprise.
Again, it's coming. Oh!
There's one more set of experiments that you could do with the Zenkutsu-dachi. Now get your partner to stand on Zenkutsu-dachi with both arms forward, with one palm over the fist of the other. And then you gently rest your weight on him. And Zenkutsu-dachi is obviously designed to move forward, so it's resistant against forces from the front. However, if he does it with the heel exceeding the knee, you would find that it is not as resistant. Being designed to move forward, however, Zenkutsu-dachi is not very resistant against forces towards the front or from the back. And to test this, just hold on to his fist and drop your weight back slightly. You will find that it is not as resistant, especially if he is leaning forward. So to resist this, he must first not lean forward and also drop his weight down center. Finally, get your opponent to place the arms diagonally, and from that position, test to both lean and pull on his fist. And from this experiment, we learned that even for the upper body, the Zenkutsu-dachi has a natural weakness against diagonal forces. Now let's look into the Nekoashi-dachi. Now since most of your weight is already at the back leg, a sweep of the front leg won't drop you. And number two, your front leg is always ready for a maigeri, front kick. And you can see that Muay Thai fighters do this all the time with the teep, their defensive version of the front kick.
Nice teep kicks from Haggerty, creating that space. Beautiful push kick, caught him coming in.
There's another excellence of execution.
The next thing to experiment is the back leg of the Nekoashi-dachi. If I were to point the toes of my back leg 90 degrees away from the front, then obviously it leaves my groin exposed, as compared to if I were to point it 30 degrees. Now, get a partner to lean his weight on the knee. If it was open 90 degrees, most likely you'd fall. If you close it to only 30 degrees, most likely you could resist the weight. Now for the upper body. If I were to hold a Shito-dachi on Nekoashi-dachi with my chest out and get my partner to lean his weight on the contact point, I won't be able to resist his weight. But if I drop my chest in and shoulders forward, I would be. That's the reason why you never see Muay Thai fighters fighting with a posture with their chest sticking out. That's just bad structure. They keep their shoulders forward. Next experiment, apply the same weight on the Shito-dachi, but I bring my hips forward and up. With this structure, I won't be able to resist. If I drop my waist, I will be able to resist. Unlike the other karate stances, with Nekoashi-dachi, you actually want to retain that lower back curve. This is because with other stances, the center of mass is always in between the two legs with Shiko-dachi, Zenkutsu-dachi, and Moto-dachi. So when you reduce that lower back curve, the center of mass is still in the most ideal stable position, while the lower back muscles provide support to the waist and up. However, with the Nekoashi-dachi, if you try to reduce that lower back curve, you can see that my upper body, especially my shoulder, is behind my waist. And you'd never see a Muay Thai fighter standing like this. They will stand this way. And just by dropping down, and that's a Nekoashi-dachi. And if you further curve the lower back, you're actually moving the center of gravity slightly forward, more so in between two legs than previously. Now for the variation of horse stances. So for Shiko-dachi, or square stance for example, that is found in Shitoryu and Goju-ryu, we'll go through the experiment that we did with Zenkutsu-dachi. That is the sweeps in 3 directions, linearly, laterally, and diagonally. And for both where the heel exceeds the knee and where it doesn't. Kiba-dachi, or horse stance, is found in Shotokan. For this, you could also experiment with the same thing. Linear sweep, lateral sweep, or diagonal sweep. Another practical function of the Shiko-dachi is to use it as a sweep or a takedown. So you could use the front of your thighs by going in here to your opponent, where your opponent's here, and pull him down this way.
Joe, as you pointed out, a lot of
which is the easier one, or you could use the back of the thighs, which go in here, where your opponent remains here, and pull him down here. Now, if you want to use the back of the thigh to take down your opponent, you have to use the Shiko-dachi and not the Kiba-dachi. And to experiment this, try get an opponent to stand on a moto-dachi, or a small front stance, a natural stance, and where you go in to the Kiba-dachi. And now grab onto each other and try to pull each other down. Most likely, you don't have that leverage and he has the advantage. Now, if you open up to a Shiko-dachi, this part of your thigh will push his thigh off center, giving you the leverage to take him down. The 6th reason is habit control. This is where I go into Ido-shiki, that is movement commands. That is where you step forward and step back on karate stances. Habit control is about how the good and bad habits that is present when you do Ido-shiki will translate into your kumite techniques, or sparring or fighting techniques. So if you have a habit that telegraphs or give away your movement that you perform in Ido-shiki, most likely that same habit will be present in your kumite when you're facing an opponent. For this, I will go straight into kumite techniques, and this will be in the next KihonMechanics video. So we're not done here, so please subscribe and watch out for the next video. Thank you for watching. And Jesse-san, Jesse Income, if you so happen to be watching, I hope you got my apology and thank you message. And for everyone else, I don't do this full-time nor for money. I do this out of passion and for sharing. If you're seeing this and found it informative, please give a like or subscribe. Your support will be very helpful.